Cool. Okay. So we have a couple of endorsement items up for discussion tonight. We also have continuation or we'll talk a little bit about bylaws changes because every 2 years we like to go into our East Bay Young Dems bylaws and just make sure everything looks updated, everything looks tidy. There have been some preliminary discussions, but we want to make sure that general membership has an opportunity to talk and take a look at our bylaws and suggest revisions or changes. So we'll touch on that. And then finally, we're also going to talk a little bit about endorsement planning for candidate endorsements for the rest of this year. As folks may or may not be aware, the California primary has been moved up. It's no longer in June, it's in March. So because the Democratic Party in the state is looking to start and kick off their primary endorsements in October of this year, that means we only have a couple more months if we want to sort of meet that deadline, soft deadline. But we'll be talking a little bit about that. But first, endorsement items on the agenda. I know, Hannah, you mentioned at 7:30, you all have some folks to come in. So we'll skip over you for now and then come back to you later. Olivia, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about SB 403. Let me know if you want to go ahead and take a shot at that right now.
Yeah, I can. It's not like a super, I don't know, detailed bill. It's just if anyone hasn't known, SB 403 is based trying to basically add discrimination of caste as a protected social class too, similar to like race, religion, sexual orientation, stuff like that. It was introduced by Senator Isha Wahb and Assembly Member Jasmeet Bains. And they have a couple of co-sponsors like Equity Labs, Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance, California for Caste Equity, Hindus for Caste Equity, people like that. But for the most part, it is basically just covering caste as a protected class. For some context and history, caste is a system of social stratification and inclusion or exclusion that impacts, about 5.7 million South Asian Americans and about 1.9 billion people worldwide. Caste is like inherited, and if your parents or grandparents, and whoever else in your lineage have a particular caste, you are also in that caste. It's strongly associated with South Asian culture, but similar systems do kind of exist in South America, Japan, parts of Africa, and elsewhere. And often, when people immigrate to the U.S. from cultures where caste is prevalent, these harmful dynamics of exclusion can still be replicated in like the workforce, especially. This bill is really meant to kind of overhaul the tech industry and how like caste is seen there. Often determines like your social status, and caste bias often like expresses an expectation that people should associate only with their own caste. So if you're outside of a certain class or caste or higher or lower caste, it's just discrimination in that way. Further, these expectations can range from like marriage, friends, jobs, and occupations. And typically members of lower caste often report exclusion from higher caste social circles and are often denied access to occupations associated with higher caste. Software engineering is one, particular occupation when that happens a lot. And there have been instances in the tech space, where discrimination, harassment, et cetera, has been seen to happen due to caste. But yeah, the consequence of really being found out as one caste or another can lead to career immobility, harassment in the workplace, exclusion from opportunity or preferential treatment if you're not from the right caste. But the reasoning of the bill is like although caste is already functionally protected under other protected characteristics like race, religion, national origin, and other things that I mentioned earlier, caste is still intertwined with and honestly based on the intersection of these other protected identities. And this bill in particular is declarative of existing laws, but also wants to make explicit that caste is protected. I'm going to link the original bill here in the chat. Give me 1 second so people can read up on it further. Like I said, it's not like something super huge to amend everything. It's just, giving people extra protection. And I have another doc that kind of gives, some basic information over the bill that I'm also gonna link in the chat. I would say definitely read up on it so you understand why this is an important bill and why, particularly in tech, it can be really important. But yeah, I really would just love to get EBYD's endorsement on this because it's, discrimination, it sucks. And no one should be discriminated against for arbitrary reasons. But yeah, any questions about that? Megan.
Yeah, I don't have any concerns about this, but I thought I had heard that there's some opposition to this, but not for obvious reasons. I'm forgetting, but I had read that somewhere. So I don't know if you recall anything like that. Is that ringing a bell for you?
I have not heard much opposition. I think I've seen some things about maybe discrimination against like South Asian Americans, maybe. But I personally have not heard much about opposition. But I will definitely, look into it some more and see why people are generally, not against it. Oh, okay, wait. Erica, do you want to go? Sorry.
Some of that opposition, the points that you might be hearing, Megan, I also listed the myths and facts for SB 403 in the chat as well. And I think that might go into more about where that opposition is coming from and how some of the amendments that have been made in the Senate address that as well too. So that's all I had to
add. Sean, did you have anything else to add?
No, I've heard like a little bit of the like opposition to that, and I think this sheet does a pretty good job of outlining it. A lot of it does come both from claims of like singling out South Asians, as well as I mean, I hate to be blunt, but there is real caste supremacy, right? And so people just don't like being called out for it. It's a legislative issue because it's a real problem, and it wouldn't be a real problem if there weren't real people who believe in this stuff, and they have resources, hopefully not a majority of resources, but they have resources to back themselves up.
Yeah. James?
Yeah, and because I mean, y'all know me in political spaces, so it's a little different, but I can like come off really non-threatening gay Asian man. So like in my I guess this is, okay, I need to phrase this close carefully because it's being recorded. I have witnessed through other spaces, folks telling me that they, based on how they appear, the color of their skin, folks being asked what caste they are specifically, why does that matter? And then the second part is I've been in conversations and some of whom are actually in the quote unquote Brahmin class who also has victims. So that's been my experience. So I just want to really affirm what folks are saying on this call.
Yeah, like everyone has mentioned, like it seems like a small thing and no one really is affected by it, but behind the scenes it's definitely something that a lot of people feel, and it's important that like I said, discrimination is not perpetuated in any workforce in any way. So yeah, that's it for me. I yield my time. If anyone else has any more questions, please ping me or email me. Oh, Christina?
Oh, I just I feel like caste definitely doesn't come up a lot in the broader American like lexicon or conversations and stuff, but there definitely is a caste system in the U.S. Even though it's more emphasized, I think, in South Asian communities. But like, if anyone wants to learn more about it, there's a book. It's called Caste. You should read it. That's all I wanted to say.
Nice. Thank you for that.
I wanted to say a piece too. Not sure if this is the same book that you're referencing, but drop both the article that references a book I read also called Caste by Isabel Wilkerson, excuse me. So definitely recommend that to keep us appraised of both the historical caste system that's been created, but then also modern iterations that we're all facing. So plus one on what a lot of us already said, but to extend kind of like the breadth of how this bill could impact us, not just today, but in the future, is to call attention to how modern caste systems continue to subjugate people. So this is, I think, what this bill is also meant to extend beyond.
Yeah. Richard?
Thanks. I agree with all the sentiments here. I'll just say something really quick, which is that Senator Wahab, who is leading this bill, I think she's doing a very brave thing by bringing this. She's gotten death threats and just very not good things over this bill, and it shows that this is really a contentious issue, as folks have said, and something that maybe a lot of people might think like, oh, is a no-brainer, but really there's a big controversy going around it, and I would be in favor of showing support for this item. James, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, just to explain and I guess this is the reason why I raised my hand, to explain the backlash against this. I mean, when I spoke with the folks who are quote unquote in the upper class, the talking points they use are right-wing talking points, and it's very similar to the way that like a lot of racist people who are upholding white supremacy use this, and they paint themselves as victims. And it's really unfortunate, and it's actually really sad that this quote unquote privileged class of people like would paint themselves in this way. But like that's the kind of pushback I would say that I see in regards to this topic. And I'm sorry if I'm just repeating what everybody else is saying, but that's like my personal experience.
Yeah, Richard, I think that we can move to a vote. I think folks are pretty much saying the same thing, and want to make sure we're keeping track of time.
Cool. Thanks, Megan. So for folks who may not have been a part of an endorsement process here yet, basically PPAC can't actually, as a body by our bylaws, endorse an item, but we can vote to recommend to the East Bay Young Dems board to endorse an item, and then the East Bay Young Dems board then actually does the actual endorsement. So I will entertain, James, is that a current hand or an old hand? Okay, I'm going to assume that's an old hand. Is there a motion to bring this up for a vote?
So moved.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll say Caleb motion, Megan seconded. All right, all in favor, please go ahead, raise your hand, say aye, put in the chat yes, whatever it might be.
Aye.
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 Cool. I'm just counting, sorry. All right, I'm counting 9 yeses, and then all opposed. James, I'm going to continue to assume that's an old hand. And all abstaining. Cool. Okay, so I think the margin was 10 to nothing to nothing. Oh, James says, yeah, okay. 11 to nothing, and we are going to recommend to the board that we go ahead and endorse this item. Thanks, Olivia.
Or does Latina Youngdom need to also
Oh,
endorse?
yes, go
this
for
item?
it.
Okay, I motion that and just for anyone new to Latina Youngdoms, I think we just have a direct vote process, so we don't have to do any of the other steps that EBYD does. But I motion to vote in support of this.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Okay. And all in favor?
I
Okay. All right. I think I see everybody who's on. Any opposed? Okay, I think, and then I don't know if anyone's gonna abstain but I counted everyone, so I think we're good.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Olivia. Moving on to the next endorsement item. Hannah, do you know if your folks are here yet? It's okay if not.
Yes, Miriam from Fossil Free California is here. And she will probably pop in a second. But first of all, I just want to thank Ruben for the invitation to join this meeting. Really appreciate it. Essentially, we're looking for letters of support for Bill SB 252, which was initially introduced by Senator Lena Gonzalez in Sacramento. The bill puts pressure on state pension funds to divest from fossil fuels to address the climate crisis. These pension funds have been giving about $40 billion, I believe, annually to fossil fuel corporations. And we would really appreciate if you all were willing to sign a letter of support or to bring the vote to the board, and hopefully for them to submit a letter of support by June 21st. Miriam, am I missing anything?
No, I think that's great. Happy to answer questions if there are some.
Sorry, just going through it quickly. Is the legislative text, is it basically, does it mandate a series of reports to the legislature, or is there any substantive action that's required to be taken? Or is it purely just reports and pressure?
So it does require substantive action. It would require that by the year 2031, the pensions divest from the 200 largest fossil fuel companies.
Okay.
They do, as per state law or constitutional law in California, have the right to determine that it's financially unsustainable for them to divest, and so therefore to push that back. There's a pretty easy 5-year window in the terms of an act of God. For example, if their building burns down or something like that. But in general, because there's so much data supporting the fact that divestment from fossil fuels is a neutral to probably more likely positive impact on the overall pension returns, it is unlikely that they wouldn't divest.
Thanks.
Megan asks in the chat, what's the teeth behind this legislation?
Yeah, I'm going to assume you're asking, like, what's the repercussion for non-divestment? In that case,
Yep, what teeth means. Yep.
great. So there isn't a specific consequence. So there's no financial penalty in the case of this bill. The largest reason being that one of the main concerns is the financial solubility of the pension. So adding financial consequences would work against us. But that being said, they are in the bill required to do reporting. And so there's a lot of what does the pension look like that can come out if they decide not to divest. And I can assure you that there's a lot of us on this side who will be pushing hard and publicly in the media if they don't comply with the bill.
Christina, go for it.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I missed it when you were explaining it. Is this the California state pension for state workers?
Yeah, so it's two pensions, CalPERS, so the public employment retirement system, and then CalSTRS, the teachers retirement system.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions or comments or thoughts? Otherwise, we can entertain a motion vote.
So moved.
Caleb motions, Sean, I see you seconded. All right. If you're an EBYD member and in favor of recommending an endorsement here, please go ahead, raise your hand
Aye.
or say aye. All right, I'm counting 8, including myself, 9. All right, all opposed? I see you, so I'll count 10. Any abstentions? Cool. All right. Unanimously, we are going to recommend to the board SB 252 for endorsement. And if Latine Young Dems wants to do their thing, go for it.
Yeah, does
Yeah.
anybody, the Latine,
Yes,
sorry, Ruben, do you want to go
No,
ahead?
no. I was just jumping the gun. Yes, thank you, Angelina, for leading it. I will make the motion.
Okay, Ruben motions. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Anthony, you go for it.
Anthony seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, and I think that's everyone. So thank you.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Miriam. Would you all be able to drop in your contact info in case anybody has any follow-ups?
Sure.
Yes, I'll do that now.
Cool. Thank you all. You both are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you're not obligated to either way. We will go ahead and move on to our next agenda item up for endorsement, which is SCA 2, Senate Constitutional Amendment 2. This one was brought up by Isabella from the Office of State Senator Henry Stern. We did invite her or somebody from Senator Stern's office to come and talk about it if they wanted to. Is anybody here representing Senator Stern's team? Okay. If not, I'll just go ahead and briefly talk about it because I think this is a pretty straightforward one. Basically, this constitutional amendment would propose changing the minimum voting age in California from 18 to 17. That's basically it. And because that is a language codified directly in the Constitution, it requires a constitutional amendment. It can't be passed just as a legislative bill. So that's the reasoning behind that. Opening up the floor for questions, thoughts, comments. And there's material linked in the agenda.
I feel like I should know this, but what is the process? This would be a constitutional amendment for California's constitution? Or
yes.
Okay, so what I've never thought about that. What does that entail to have a California constitutional amendment?
That's a great question. I don't really know the intricacies of the constitutional amendment process. Thanks, Jane. If anyone else, I'm sure there are people on this call who are much more familiar with this process than I am.
Sure. So to amend the California Constitution, you can either, it requires voter approval by simple majority, and you can either place the constitutional amendment on the ballot via signatures. If you get enough signatures, you can place on the ballot, or if a 2/3 majority of both houses of the state legislature refer it to the ballot, that's also a different way to amend the state constitution. So it's actually pretty easy to amend the California state constitution, which is why our state constitution is much longer than the Bible, I believe.
Thanks, Caleb.
I
Any
move
other
we adopt this item.
Caleb, you said. Caleb, can you repeat that again?
I move to endorse this item.
Okay. Caleb moves. I see Sean seconds. All in favor for,
I have a question.
yes.
So, I'm sorry. Oh, Erica is also, oh, maybe she was raising her hand.
I was raising my hand for the vote. Sorry.
Sorry. No, you're fine. I guess, I'm sorry. I'm very much a political novice. Why do we want to do this?
I don't represent the bill, but there's a lot of literature which suggests that when people turn 18, they tend to be in the transition from high school to whatever it is they're going to do afterwards. And in that transition, if they move address and whatnot, the chances of them signing up for voting in that time frame is much lower. And therefore, and if they don't sign up right away, the chances of them voting at all after is significantly lessened as well. There are also, you could argue, though, the literature, I think, on this is less well developed, that young people have a systemic interest in longer term things, student debt relief, climate change, the balance of the public accounts. But in general, I think it is, and like you do have like differential effects on children, on minors. So there is some interest, laws affect minors very differently than the way they affect people who are over 18. And so it would be useful to have at least some people who are affected by those laws be able to vote on them.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. And I'll also add, because I'm just going to scan through their fact sheet, the angle that they're coming at this, them as in Senator Stern's team is coming at this, is mainly expanding democracy, expanding turnout, but also they make the point that a lot of young people, once they turn 18, they graduate high school, they go off into college or whatever, and they leave their communities. And by lowering the age to 17, you get to capture some of the people before they hit that point. That's one of the angles that they're coming at with it. Christina, go for it.
I just wanted to say part of EBUID's mission is to empower young people in politics and to vote. So like our mission says EBUID works to encourage young people from 14 to 35 years old in the East Bay to take an active role in their community through activism, policy, and politics, and contribute to the growth and influence of ideals and philosophies of the Democratic Party. And I think that this bill directly aligns with that mission.
Cool. Ruben, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to echo what everyone else said. Our club allows people within our organization from 14 to 21 to also vote for our endorsement. So why would we not try to fight to get them to also vote on the ballot? And then also some of the arguments that are also made in the offices of the authors and co-authors is, teenagers age 16 can, drive the cars, they can register for the Army. So why don't we trust them? Why can we say they're mature enough to do that, but not enough to just to make a vote.
Thanks, Ruben. Olivia, go for it.
Yeah, Ruben kind of like stole everything I was gonna say out of my mouth, because I think like this bill is great. I think it's like a great first step towards, you know, giving young people the ability to make decisions over their lives that you know they all need. I definitely hope to see something that lowers it to 16, because I do think if especially if turnout and transition are two big issues, you know, I think 17-year-olds still have weird, I don't know, pre-sent transition things to go through. Like I remember going through being 17 and doing my junior year of high school, and also being bombarded with like college apps and other stuff that made it kind of hard to think about other things outside of that. But definitely lowering it to even 16 would kind of help alleviate that as well, and give people more opportunity to learn about the legislative and voting processes and get them more involved. But yeah, I think it's great.
Cool. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Otherwise, we will entertain motions to vote, or a motion to vote.
So moved.
I second.
Caleb moves, Erica seconds. All right, EYD, all in favor of recommending for endorsement SCA 2, please raise your hand
Aye.
or say aye. All right, I see 6, including myself, so 6. Georgia, I see you 7. Caleb 8. Cool. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Cool. Latine Young Dems, do your thing.
Do I have a motion for this item?
I motion to endorse this item.
I second. Christina motions, Maria seconds, all in favor? Okay, all opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Latine Young Dems will be endorsing this item.
Cool. Thanks, Angelina. All right, nice. Caleb, I want to turn it over to you for this next item to talk a little bit about the Oakland A's relocation plan.
Sure. So, as y'all know, the A's have proposed to move to Nevada and are trying to get public financing there to enable them to build a new stadium there. And it is not really going very well for the Nevada State Legislature, because it turns out that the Nevada State Legislature is not as stupid as the A's think they are. So I think this presents an opportunity. So what I was thinking is that rather than let the A's and Major League Baseball try to pit Oakland and Las Vegas against each other, we should cooperate against Major League Baseball. So what I have in mind is that we should partner with the Las Vegas Young Democrats to contact our leaders in both communities and basically say, you should join arms and reach an agreement. Basically, the agreement would be Nevada does not agree to provide public subsidy to a baseball stadium. And in return, Oakland will refuse to approve any A's stadium in Oakland until Major League Baseball agrees that Las Vegas gets the next Major League Baseball expansion team and that no public subsidy will be required there either. So basically, we would say that A's, you can't have a new stadium in either city until both teams get it, until both cities are guaranteed a baseball team and no public subsidy. So basically, I think that we don't have to play the Major League Baseball silly game. And by working together with our counterparts in Nevada, we can hopefully try to do something better than, you know, these garbage proposals that they've thrown out so far. So anyhow, that's my somewhat wild idea, but this is the moment where you can say, Caleb, settle down.
I mean, to be honest, I like wild ideas. That's interesting. I'm sorry that we don't have Megan on here because I know she would probably have feelings on this issue. Maybe we can circle back with her later this meeting, but opening up to obviously questions, comments, and thoughts.
So just to clarify, we as clubs will be reaching out to Las Vegas clubs.
So we as a club would reach out to, yes, to our counterparts in Las Vegas. And then we would try to create some sort of joint letter to the mayor of Oakland and I guess the Cook County, wait, no, what's the county?
County Commission.
Sorry?
Is it the Clark County Commission?
Thank you. That's the one. That's the one. We would also write to the Clark County Commission. And, you know, maybe publish an op-ed.
This is assuming we can get their support.
Yes, assuming our counterparts in Las Vegas are smart and will be open to working with us.
Gotcha.
This sounds fun.
Are you confident that Las Vegas will be on our side or agree with this? Or what are your thoughts? I don't know how likely they are to join this agreement.
Well, I will note that I do not know anyone in Las Vegas, so it's a little hard for me to judge. However, I guess I would put it in terms of if you were in their shoes and you were a young Democrat who desperately wanted to fund more money for essential public services, and an out-of-state corporation proposed to put $500 million into a baseball stadium that's going to be miraculously full, then how well would you receive that proposal?
Good point. Good point. All right, I do think this is a great idea, though.
I love this idea. It's very elegant. It's evil genius. Though I have two kind of interesting points. Though I think the Clark County Board of Commissioners already signed off on this, and it's currently sitting in the Las Vegas legislature. So you might need to outreach to your Las Vegas legislators instead. The other thing that might come up is that looking at this for a moment from Mr. Fisher's point of view, right? I think if we were able to successfully do this, Mr. Fisher and MLB commissioners' response would simply be, well, guess what? Neither Las Vegas nor Oakland are going to get a baseball team. Is there an answer to that?
I'm very glad you brought that up, Sean. That is one of the concerns that I anticipated somebody might raise. So basically, there are some other teams that are been talked about as potential destinations for Major League Baseball team. Portland and Nashville probably being the top of the list besides Las Vegas. So if they were to approach Portland or Nashville, then what my proposal would be is that we just simply expand our little compact. So instead of having to guarantee baseball teams for Oakland and Las Vegas, now you have to guarantee baseball teams to Oakland and Las Vegas and Portland and or Nashville.
That's very beautiful, and I think we should give it a fair shot.
This feels like a fever dream, so I'm kind of down for it.
Yes, you know, I
am also down.
Thank you all. I don't think this is going to work, but I think it'll be a lot of fun to try.
And I think if they are going to be like, you guys don't both get teams, then we have successfully like not allowed them to pit us against the other city. You know, it kind of comes back on them.
And then I think from like from a Democratic Party point of view too, like even if we lose, like even if it doesn't work, if we manage to like put this alliance together, we've at least like saved the public. We've at least contributed to saving the public coffers, right?
Totally. And it might
freed
give
up that money for pressing Democratic priorities.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe this could provide some political cover to the Nevada state legislature. They could be like, oh, I'm not against baseball, I'm just against this particular deal. And here's this strategy of how we're going to get a baseball team that doesn't require public funds.
Yeah, the other interesting thing is, I don't know if anyone saw Representative Barbara Lee's letter to the MLB commissioner. So if we get some steam behind us, it sounds like our congresswoman might be able to pull some support in as well.
Another excellent suggestion. So I guess the way I would phrase the resolution is a resolution authorizing the East Bay Young Democrats to seek a partnership with Las Vegas Young Democrats to form a partnership between Las Vegas and Oakland to jointly negotiate for baseball teams in both communities with no taxpayer subsidy.
Caleb, would you mind, sorry to do this to you, would you mind typing it in the chat?
Yes, sorry.
That way I'm trying to take minutes, which is also a first for this kind of PPAC meeting. Unfortunately, my brain is not large enough to handle all of this. So if you can write that down, I'll just copy and paste. That'd be great. Should we entertain a motion? Should we let it stew for a little while longer?
I'm typing it into the chat.
Okay, cool. Olivia, did you say motion?
I did indeed.
And is that okay? Yes, motion to vote.
I second.
Erica seconds. All right. Because it is technically not an endorsement, Caleb, do you know if we just go ahead and vote to support this? Or would we need to throw this to the board?
I'm not 100% sure. I think we should just run it by the board just in case anyone has like a glaring no, we shouldn't do it type thing. But
okay, yeah. Cool. Christina, were you going to say something?
I don't think this is really covered in our bylaws. So yeah, I think we just need to get board support and then run with it.
Cool. Okay. Picking a fight with Major League Baseball is not codified in our bylaws? Wow, shocking to me. All right. So motion to vote on whether we recommend to the board we endorse this resolution that Caleb is proposing and typing in the chat. Cool. And then Erica second. All in favor, raise your hands. All right, including myself, I see 8. Any opposed? Thanks, Caleb. I see it in the chat. Christina, that is opposed. Is that? Oh, never mind. Okay. All right, so no one opposes. I just want to confirm that. Any abstentions? Cool. Okay. Unanimously, we are going to recommend to the board that we want to do this shit. Okay. All right. That is all for like voting stuff tonight. We're gonna go ahead and talk a little bit, switch gears now from endorsement / support items to talking about EBYD bylaws. I'm going to go ahead and share again the agenda because there are some links there. Do this shit will not be in the minutes, but it will be on the recording, Sean. So for folks who may not be aware, every 2 years or so, we try and update the organizational bylaws just to keep it fresh and make sure that we're up to date on things. There's been an effort already to sort of go in there, dig around, and make revisions and changes. Some of the folks currently on this call have been part of those conversations, but we also do want to open this up to PPAC and to membership in general to take a look and see if there are any suggestions or thoughts on existing proposed changes. James, who is our parliamentarian, usually handles this stuff. He is not available tonight. He has a pre-existing conflict. But I already know, like, I'm gonna forget stuff that we discussed previously. So if anybody wants to jump in at all, it's that second link, by the way, in the agenda where it says 2023 revised bylaws changes. That's where we've made our proposed changes so far. But essentially, we made some changes around the endorsement process, when to use ranked choice voting, when to not use ranked choice voting. I can't remember if we made any changes to push forward the endorsement timeline because of the primate. Caleb is shaking his head. That means no. Actually, you know what, Caleb? I'm just going to turn it over to you because I'm sure you have a much better memory than I do.
No worries. Would you like me to share my screen?
That'd be great.
All right. 1 moment. Sorry. Let me see if I can pull this up.
Caleb's our former parliamentarian and very well versed with the bylaws.
Sorry, too many tabs.
No worries, you're good.
All right, there. All right, are you all able to see this bylaws?
Could you blow it up a little bigger?
Sorry,
no worries.
Okay. So we do a few things. Some of these are just clarifications, like taking out obsolete language, like we no longer have the same committee structure as we used to, so we just trimmed that piece out in our proposal so far. The bulk of it is that we're proposing some changes to our endorsement procedures. And I think that what we're interested in hearing today is if anyone has any concerns about these proposals, or if there's something that you don't see here that you would like to see added. So we do simplify things a little bit so that we're just clarifying that we can still, in uncontested elections where there's no Democrat except for one running, we can just endorse for, with a simple majority. Otherwise, we're keeping our 60% threshold as usual. So one of the new additions that we were contemplating was saying that to be eligible for endorsement, you actually have to fill out the club's questionnaire, which we send to candidates in most races, because this has been an issue in the past where people have tried to get our endorsement without actually, submitting a statement or filling out a questionnaire. So this is basically an incentive for candidates to make an effort for our endorsement. Another proposed change is just to clarify that how no endorsement works. This is how we've already been doing it, but if you vote no endorsement in a endorsement race, then we count that as a vote for neither candidate. So that basically means that, if there's 10 voters in a race, and 5 of them vote for one candidate, and 4 of them vote for another candidate, and 1 person votes for no endorsement, then we don't hit that 60% threshold. So we're just clarifying that. Let's see, we also basically are just also spelling out how we already do ranked choice voting in ranked choice elections. One change that we are planning on doing here is that in the past, in things like the 2020 presidential primary, we used ranked choice voting for some races that were not actually ranked choice themselves, like the primary election, where in the actual election, you can only vote for one person. But East Bay and Democrats, we made a first choice, and a second choice, and a third choice, I believe, endorsement, because we were using ranked choice voting for our club's endorsement. So we are planning on not doing that in races in which you can't vote for more than one candidate, but in some races like Oakland or Berkeley City Council, where those are ranked choice elections, then we will continue to use ranked choice voting as our club's own procedure for making endorsements. Now, and interrupt me at any point if you have questions. Let's see.
I just
Go
want
ahead.
to interject because I think Megan made a really good point about the questionnaire, which could also be a video questionnaire, because it's not just, so that, we're like, okay, we need you to do something. It's also an accountability thing so that we can hold, hopefully, our elected politicians accountable on things that they said.
Excellent point, Tina. Thank you for raising that. Wow. Go ahead.
I'm just going back to the lowering the threshold to 50% for places where there's only one Democrat in the election. So implicit in that thing is a certain degree of trust in kind of not even the party structure, but just like registered Democrats who choose to call for election, right? And I think we've all sat in general elections where there may have been a Democrat on the registered Democrat on the ballot, and maybe only one, but with some very interesting viewpoints, shall we say? So does it is that decision a conscientious choice that in those situations we still think that like we have enough confidence in the general importance of like, personally registering for a Democrat that we're willing to lower that threshold? Or is it like, what's the reasoning behind that?
It's a good question. The provision that says that to endorse a Democrat in a race where there's no other Democrats running only requires a simple majority is an old provision in our bylaws. That provision dates back at least 4 or 5 years, probably longer. So its original origin, I do not know. My understanding is that the thought is that it would probably be less controversial for us to endorse those kinds of races in most circumstances. So they're trying to simplify the endorsement procedure a little bit. But I think you do raise a fair point, Sean. If it's an uncontested race and there's only one Democrat in the race, then presumably if they're any good, they can get more than 60% of our vote.
Yeah. And if they have an issue getting 60% of the votes, maybe they don't deserve our endorsement.
Yeah. Other thoughts from the group on that point?
Yeah, so just to be clear, our current proposal is we want to take out this old clause. So the old clause that says majority vote, and we want to take that out to match the 60% that we are.
No,
That's James's suggestion on the doc, Caleb.
Oh, no, that was just clarification. Oh yes, I'm sorry. Well, you're right about that with regards to. It's complicated. The second clause was more or less duplicitous of the first clause. The first clause here says that the EBUID may endorse the nominee of the Democratic Party or the Democratic candidate in any public election between candidates of different parties by a simple majority vote of those present. So we still have a majority vote provision here. But it no longer applies to unopposed in a partisan primary. So
Okay.
would you suggest, Sean, that we change simple majority to 60% here?
So those are two different issues, I think. Right, like the question 2, the one that James got rid of, would like that's if like only one Democrat is running, but not necessarily with like official Democratic endorsement, right? So that kind of like heightens the threshold for like any random Democrat, right?
Yeah.
Section 1 is a little bit higher, right? Like this is not just some random Democrat, it's some random Democrat who has secured the endorsement of like some level of the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah, well, somebody
So
who's
that
run
is a
primary.
higher standard. So like it's understandable why you'd want to get rid of 2 and not 1. That said, I think my personal view is that county Democratic Central committees are a diverse bunch. And they don't always, they're not necessarily always reflective of the views of young people perfectly. And so there is, to my mind, a legitimate question. I don't know if I fully endorse it, as like, should you just have consistency across the board?
Sure. I'll just note real quick that this provision talks about the nominated Democratic Party. That would be a candidate who wins the primary election, not somebody who is endorsed by the central.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay, that we endorse any. Okay. That makes sense. Okay, in that case, I think like that one, from my perspective, sorry to take time on this.
No, it's a good question.
But I think from my mind, like leaving that one in there for now, like makes sense. Yeah, I'd endorse in the jettisoning of clause 2.
All good. Yeah. Appreciate the eye for detail. I mean, there's so much old stuff in here, sometimes it just looks biased. Let's see, where were we? Oh, and then one other change we propose to make is that in our endorsement process, we would try to find a way to recognize current young Democrats, with the idea being that we want to sort of highlight who's a young Democrat, so people who want to support young Democrats can more easily do so, as we are the party supporting it, because we are the club that supports young Democrats. Not 100% of the time in endorsements, but often. So that would probably be something like an asterisk next to their name on the ballot, or something pretty low-key like that. And we had talked a little bit about possibly overhauling our policy endorsement procedure, which is here in subsection E. So right now, to endorse a policy like the ones that we are doing today, the executive board endorses based off of a recommendation from this committee. And then there's a procedure where they announce the tentative endorsement, and then any member of the club has 48 hours to protest. And if they protest, which actually I don't think has ever happened, then they would then have the matter be heard by the full club at the next membership meeting. At which point there would be a vote of the full club. So that's the current procedure, but as y'all heard, it can be a little bit cumbersome that we have to track down all the board members to basically ratify the PPAC meeting. And then there has to be this opportunity for people to protest for 48 hours. So if anyone is interested in changing that, this would be a good time to make a proposal. Though I'm not the PPAC chair anymore, so I'm not necessarily feeling obligated to make a proposal myself. But we can just leave it as is if folks think it works fine.
All right, Caleb, can you say that again one more time?
So if we want to change our policy endorsement procedure, now could be a good time to think about how to do that. Or we could leave it as is if we think it works okay. I see a hand from Olivia.
If you hypothetically were PPAC chair again, how would you change this? Out of curiosity.
Always interesting questions, Olivia. Let's see. I would change it so that PPAC can just make an endorsement, and that we don't have to go back to the board. I would say that the 48-hour protest opportunity should only be for items that were not announced as part of a PPAC agenda a week ahead of time. So basically, if we said ahead of time, we're going to be considering something at the PPAC meeting, then any action taken here would be final. And it's only if someone walks in with an item that they hadn't put on the agenda, at that point, there's the protest procedure. Because then someone may have actually cared about the item, but not known it was going to be considered.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think maybe my only concern about PPAC allowing official endorsements is that not all the board members come as often as we should. I think maybe we, I don't know, maybe a mandate or something, maybe that can kind of alleviate that problem. But besides that, I think that's, I think that's not a bad idea.
See, Richard and Erica.
Thanks, Olivia. And for Christina, who just rejoined us, we're talking about if potentially we want to change the way we do policy endorsements. I think this is a difficult question to answer now because it depends so much on like how we restructure PPAC. I think that's the first question that needs to be addressed before, because what we do there then impacts, I think, what we think about for how we revise our endorsement policy, policy endorsement process.
And Erica.
I think to Caleb and Olivia's point about potentially changing so that PPAC would be the endorsement body and not having to go back to the board, I think that would honestly encourage board members to come out and to participate in more than just the board meeting, because there wouldn't be an expectation that it would be presented to them in the board meeting, and we would actually have more space to talk about other things outside of what might be covered in the board meeting. But I understand like why we've done it so far, and I still look forward to like learning more about a potential PPAC restructuring too, and how that would fit into it. But those are just my immediate thoughts.
Those are fair thoughts. See, Ruben has a hand.
Hey, yeah, as also a former PPAC co-chair, and also like, so I joined the board, I was a regular member in 2018 and I joined the board in 2019. So since, and then all that time, like before the pandemic, we actually had, EBYD had a set general membership meeting, which was separate from the PPAC committee. And so that was like, I believe like every fourth Wednesday of the month. And then the pandemic hit, fast forward, and I believe we generally had in general membership meetings, but I feel like it's just been a natural weird dissolution between PPAC committee meetings and then general membership meetings, where PPAC was happening every like second Monday of the month or whatever. It changes every year depending on who's the chairs and their schedules. But long story short, it's almost like PPAC itself has become the new general membership meeting. And then every month we as a club try to organize something that's slightly different than just PPAC stuff, which includes social hours, candidate forums. I think one of the years we had like virtual like book club or whatever, to kind of fill out the rest of the year. So I think that's something that we kind of talked about yesterday, which was just kind of turning PPAC into just naming it a PPAC membership meeting or whatever, general membership meeting, to kind of like combine the two, because this kind of naturally already happened anyways.
As another long-term EBYD member, it's definitely definitely agree with Ruben in that the PPACs have become more like our old general membership meetings.
And then I'll just add that I am generally in favor of like things that sort of, I guess, democratizes the work and like responsibilities and voting powers and stuff like that. I feel like the like meat of like legislation and like policy discussion and all of that happens in PPAC. It doesn't really happen with the board. So to me, I feel like if you're here at PPAC, this is where we review policy discussion items. This is where we ask the questions, debate, make comments, whatever, and go through it. This is where the voting power should lie. That's just my opinion. And to add the additional step of what we do like now, where we send it to the board for a recommendation and the board has to review, and then there's a 48-hour challenge period, like that just sounds like added steps to me. So I would be in favor of just simplifying the process, but also it just makes more sense to me this way.
Also, I have a question, more like a comment and a question, but when we're saying like sending it to the board, we're talking about like adding those yes, no votes to the Slack channel. And if I'm not mistaken, we've had some trouble like getting people to actually vote in time for some of these measures. So I absolutely agree with you, Richard.
Well, in that case, based on those comments, how about I write in some proposed amendment here? Based off what we were talking about, and then folks can workshop if they like it or dislike it. Sorry. So Ruben has a hand up.
Yeah. I wanted to just also emphasize, in case I wasn't made aware, probably by me earlier, that as the comms director, so today is the June PPAC meeting. So July 10th, which is the next one, the second Monday in July, is when we are gonna actually vote as an entire club on the proposed bylaws changes. So I want folks to think about that tonight. That we as a board have to submit our final draft in terms of the board's final draft of our proposed changes when we announce the meeting officially, which means through social media, through our direct newsletter, which I think has like over 6,000 people signed up or something like that. That doesn't mean we have 6,000 members. Some of those are non-young Dems. But once we officially announce that, we will submit those bylaws. We will send that in the email and on social media, links to people, so our members can see the proposed changes. Tonight or tomorrow, when I send out the email about the bills and the A's thing that we signed on tonight, I will start early announcing to people, here is the link to our current bylaws. So please feel free to review them as a general member and come ready in July with any potential changes you want. So we're gonna announce that like very soon. So members have almost an entire month to kind of start thinking about their own viewpoints. Maybe they're part of other clubs who do things slightly differently and they have ideas. So yeah, I just wanted to reflag that.
Cool. Christine, I saw you unmute.
Yeah. When we announce it, or when you announce it, Ruben, do we have to say like, come with your changes, or can we just say we had a committee meeting and propose these changes, come prepared to vote on these changes?
I would, yeah, no, that's a good point. I guess I would maybe bring in the bylaws folks, former parliamentarians, because it is in our bylaws that we have to do it every odd year.
Mhm.
And my only memory, because I think we slipped on this in 21. That was me and Caleb. Yeah, I think we forgot to do one that year. I think we had to do like a quick one in 2022. But in 2019, so pre-pandemic, I remember because we were in person back then, like people would broke up into like board members and regular members in person broke up into little splinter groups based on subject matter. Like you all can go review the housing part of our bylaws or the endorsement procedure part of the bylaws. So like it was super directly engaged. And I know technically this today it was announced as come talk about our bylaws and get engaged. So this is enough in addition to, but I guess it's just how folks want
I
to
think
brand it in the announcement.
I think you might also be thinking of the policy platform update, Ruben, which we're also due to do this year.
Oh God, yes. No, you're right. That's what I was thinking about. Ugh. So much
Yeah.
work.
Now, I think there was a couple of very senior members of the club who were basically like, here's our brilliant plans for changing bylaws in 2019. And we were like, ooh and ah, and yes, sure.
Sweet, cool. Let's go with that then.
Yeah, those are the days. Anyhow, any other final thoughts on bylaws, or shall we consider ourselves all bylaw out for the evening? All right, I'll stop sharing this screen now.
Cool. Thanks, Caleb, and thanks, folks. I know we're almost hitting 8:30, and we still have one more pretty important agenda item, which is talking about political affairs / candidate endorsements for the rest of the year. I'm gonna kindly request that we extend the meeting by like 15 minutes. I think it is really important, and I didn't want to cut off the discussion on bylaws because that is also very important. If you all have obligations at 8:30 or whatever and you need to leave, no one's feelings will be hurt. But we did want to bring this up and cover everything in our agenda. I'm gonna go ahead.
So moved. Can I make the motion?
We don't need a motion.
No.
I was asking without your permission. So
I don't
I'll
think
go
I can
ahead.
vote anyone, so that's perfect.
I'll go ahead and drop in the link. This is also linked in the agenda, but this is sort of as of today, a guide of all the potential offices and races that we may want to play a part in for this year. Let me see, did I put in the right link? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Okay, cool. I've split this out into different like levels of office. I've split this out into, is it an open seat? Is it a competitive seat? Priorities and stuff like that. Obviously, this is just a draft. These are my thoughts as VP of Political Affairs, and very open to change and discussion and questions and thoughts and suggested revisions. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, because the primary it has been shifted up by 3 months and it's now in early March, everything else has been shifted up 3 months. And so the California Democratic Party endorsing convention for the primaries is now in November. That process though will start in October. So that's sort of where we want to be in terms of our endorsing timeline. Municipal elections, correct me if I'm wrong by the people who are more knowledgeable on this than me. As far as I'm aware, municipal elections don't have primaries. And so therefore, we have some breathing room for municipal elections. If we want to punt that to next year, that's fine. But the focus is on federal, on statewide, countywide, and regional. That's how I'm sort of processing this. And of course, we have some open seats and some very competitive and very interesting elections all over the East Bay in the next 16 months or so. I can't do math. But I wanted to put this guide in front of all of you and open it up and just see what you all think if there are any questions, any comments on how we should do this process. But what I am thinking so far right now is it's June right now. I would like to get together people who are interested in building the infrastructure of things like creating an endorsement questionnaire, reaching out to people on these various different campaign teams, soliciting candidates' availabilities for potential like endorsement or meet and greet events, things like that. And then have something concrete by July. And August, I am imagining we go ahead and make our endorsements for the federal and statewide level offices. September, we will go ahead with the regional and countywide offices, and that'll get us to October. That is, I know, an ambitious timeline, but we don't have a lot of time, unfortunately, from now to October. And so that's what I'm proposing, and that's what I'm putting on the docket. And again, I'm opening the floor now for folks who have questions or thoughts. Caleb, go for it.
I'm of course happy to help. And I very much admire your fortitude, Richard, in proposing that we dispose of all of the primary endorsements in 2 months. However, I'm not quite sure if our versatility is quite as high as yours. So my advice would be that we consider spreading out the endorsement timeline somewhat. I think it makes sense that we want to try to endorse early in, some of these fairly high-profile federal offices. But my knowledge is that some of these more local level stuff like county board supervisors might be a little bit slower to get rolling, really. So my advice would be that we consider potentially doing the state and federal offices over an August, September timeframe. And then we move the Alameda County and special district offices into January and February of next year. Because if the election's in March, then if we meet in early January and early February, that's still enough time to do endorsement.
Can I ask a quick question? This is a really basic question. I'm sorry that I don't know this, but at the convention in November, are they only endorsing federal and statewide offices?
I don't know. Is anyone here who's been to the convention before now?
Well, this would have been a great question for Megan if she was here.
So I will say for some of these local offices, I don't think other levels of the Democratic Party should be driving our timeline. But also the state Democratic Party doesn't endorse local races, does it?
That's what I'm thinking now.
Yeah, I think that the CYD only endorses local elections in which young Democrats are running.
Yeah.
I don't think they do anything further than that. So maybe if we find that there is an election that has a young Democrat running, we can prioritize that, but maybe we can just come to that bridge when we get there.
That's a good thought, Christina.
Cross that bridge, the after whatever.
Okay. I hear both of you and I like what you're both saying. If that's the case, Caleb, I would tend to agree with you on prioritizing some of the federal and statewide offices over some of the more local, countywide or regional stuff. I am sure there will probably be a few local elections where there will be a young Dem running. And so maybe when we get more clarity on that and those races take shape, we can go ahead and add them to that docket. But given what we've discussed, I am personally okay with us moving countywide and regional offices beyond November.
Thank you, Richard.
Any other thoughts? And if you are interested, thank you, Caleb, for volunteering. But if you are interested, anybody else in like playing any part in any of this, like whether it be drafting questionnaires or helping to reach out to campaigns, that would be really, really, really appreciative because it's actually kind of a lot of work for 1 or 2 people to take on.
This sounds like it overlaps with like the candidate forums. So I think naturally I should be able to help with this. Like we're reaching out to, especially for the candidate forums at the local level. I know that's falling into my world.
Thank you, Erica. And this is not a decision you all need to make, obviously, right now on the spot. But I think given how little time we have left until November, we should probably get started soon. I would like to start a committee of folks who are interested in participating in this year's endorsement process. And that way we don't have to be restricted to the once a month PPAC timeline. Because we will need to do work outside of PPAC for this to be successful.
I'm happy to help with 1 or 2 of the endorsements votes. And I'm wondering if could we ask, like, send a call for help to the general membership for doing all these endorsement meetings?
I would love that. At Ruben.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And follow-up question for Ruben and like Angelina, what does Latine and Ems want to do?
Yeah, we're down to continue partnering like we did last year on every endorsement thing that we hold. So count myself and Angelina in. Or if we have 2 other board members, if either Angelina or I need to step away for whatever reason.
Cool. So as of now, I'm going to put down. Yep, Erica, go for it.
Just wanted to add, if we're inviting general members, it might be easier to invite them to a reoccurring date and make it easier so we're not deciding on what time, what day. This is more of like this is happening each week or however many times. Just saying we should set that the reoccurring date up sooner rather than later too, to share to the general body for hope.
Do we feel comfortable making that logistical decision now? So it sounds like I got Caleb, Erica, Ruben, Angelina, Christina. I don't know if you're in or not. But we have a couple of folks who are interested.
I'll hop in.
I'll throw my
Sean
hand away
and
too.
Olivia.
I'm in.
I know, and Tina, from the last e-board or the one before that, Jason was supposed to be in on this too. So it might be good to make a group chat, maybe not make a decision here, but make a group chat so we can make a decision and share that to the general body.
Cool. I do want to get Sean's opinion on like just in general, I guess like what days or like what times generally work for you, because we want to keep that in consideration. Yes.
I am a big fan of Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays.
Mondays, Tuesdays, and
Thursday
Thursdays.
nights.
Cool. All right, Erica, go for it.
Yeah, I'm in favor of Tuesday nights.
Tuesday nights, okay.
Just most sadly most Tuesday nights won't work because there's a lot of us involved in like city count like jobs that require attending Tuesday night meetings. But if that's what the majority can do, then let's go with that. But that's just something to consider.
Yeah.
Monday nights are best.
Monday nights, okay.
Yeah.
We'll
After
do it.
PPEC, I guess.
Cool. Okay, I mean, it's easy for the board. We can just solicit feedback from the board, but I did want to get Sean's time availability. But okay. Cool. We'll send something around and then yeah, we'll figure out a time and let general membership know, and then we can get started. And yes, Caleb, I agree, we should get started sooner rather than later. But that sounds good to me. And you all have access to this guide, and feel free to look at it anytime with any comments and questions or whatever. All right. That's pretty much all I had for this item and for our agenda tonight. So I will now open it out to anybody here if you have like announcements or general questions about anything related or not related to tonight's meeting.
But I just wanted to clarify. So are we waiting to discuss with other folks on the board before soliciting help from general members?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Cool. Yeah. If there are no announcements, then I will go ahead and call it and let you all go. Let me first actually turn off the recording.